So, what if I told you God of War Ragnarok is going to be the biggest game of 2022? Still with me? Okay, so that means it is also bigger than Elden Ring, right? And no, the bigger I'm referring to isn't Kratos' impressive body mass, nor am I talking about the length of the game and the amount of content in both titles. I'm talking about the game that will be received the best among the public and games media in general. Now, before you go ahead and write a nasty comment about this, by all means, go for it. I just want to say that I don't necessarily believe that this is true. Let's not beat around the bush. God of War 2018 was one of the most celebrated single-player games that has come out in years, and made clear strides to push the envelope of how excellent and viable single-player narrative-driven experiences are in a world almost entirely dominated with multiplayer games. But I wouldn't go ahead and undermine the incredible popularity of Elden Ring and the massive contributions that game has made to the gaming medium as a whole. Released earlier this year, Elden Ring has somehow managed to do what most of us didn't necessarily expect. Bring together an existing base of Souls-like players, and players who have either played Souls-like games in the past and for whatever reason didn't enjoy them, or players who never dabbled with Souls before. It was a resounding success, and the game continues to grow with each passing month, and will likely continue to attract players as DLC will hopefully continue to expand the game's universe. With God of War Ragnarok now confirmed to be coming out November 9th of this year, we now have what many are speculating as a true showdown between two industry giants, as they fight to win the coveted Game of the Year title. Now, to me, Game of the Year means little to nothing. I believe people should just go play games regardless of the scores they receive, or the passionate players writing reviews on Metacritic, or people just like me making YouTube videos about recommending games. I am positive that God of War Ragnarok is going to be one of the most celebrated games this year, and I would be quite shocked if this game got anything less than a 90 on Metacritic. Just by looking at the gameplay footage from the trailers, this looks like it will be more of a continuation of what we got from God of War in 2018, rather than a radical departure from it like God of War 2018 was to previous entries in the franchise. Set to be the finale of Kratos' journey in the realms of Norse mythology, Ragnarok is set to be the largest game in the series, and by a pretty good margin. David Jaffe, the series producer and game director of the very first God of War game that was released in 2005, predicts that God of War Ragnarok will be upwards of 40 hours in length, claiming, "I'm hearing from people in the know that the game is 40 hours. They're aiming for 40 hours of gameplay." He continues on by mentioning, "Now I don't know if that's 100% platinum trophy completion or if that's average playtime. Regardless, 40 hours is a lot when compared to the previous God of War title, where that game averaged around 20 hours for a playthrough when only focusing on completing the story, and about a dozen more for 100% completion. Now compared to Elden Ring, which players often amass close to the 100-hour mark to finish the story and complete a variety of other content in the game, it doesn't seem like much. But if God of War Ragnarok achieves that length and is compelling and intriguing throughout all those hours, well, that is an enormous feat worth celebrating. With the impending Ragnarok looming in the distance, and with many gods and important figures left unintroduced, it seems like God of War Ragnarok still has plenty of story to tell in this upcoming game. In addition, several realms that were inaccessible in the original game to explore will most likely be playable in God of War Ragnarok, setting up this new game in the franchise to be the most ambitious and largest game in the series by quite a large margin. If you think God of War 2018 was Sony Santa Monica delivering a God of War tale in a fresh new setting and getting their feet a bit wet in a new gameplay format, just think of God of War Ragnarok as a more refined, larger, and more varied world for players to explore one last time as players set out on their final journey with Kratos and Atreus in the Norse world. What Elden Ring did was translate the more linear Soulsborne level design into a massive open world environment, where the key element of discovery from the older games applied to a much larger region to explore. This made Elden Ring a game where such discoveries happened at such a high frequency that gave players further incentives to seek out every boss, dungeon, item, or weapon, and fed into the addictive loop of constant discovery in the conquest of bettering oneself to conquer the next big challenge in one's path. God of War Ragnarok, at least in the way that I see it, has the potential to further expand the vast new Norse world that the previous game introduced, by giving players more than enough reasons to venture off the beaten path to tackle some of the game's side objectives to unearth that same aspect that made Elden Ring and the Soulsborne series so fun in the first place: discovery. Now, I know God of War Ragnarok has its share of controversy in its egregious physical pre-order special editions that contain a steelbook case without the game disc, and the fact that this game will also be on PlayStation 4 instead of solely tapping into the power of the PlayStation 5. Also, that many are calling this game a God of War 1.5, or 4.5 for that matter, and while I see those perspectives, let's not forget that this game has been in development for almost 5 years, and with a studio as experienced as this one at the helm, I'm sure this game will make even more of a splash than the one that came before it. So, will God of War Ragnarok be the biggest game of 2022? Only time will tell, but regardless, it's gonna take a hell of a lot to beat Elden Ring as this year's Game of the Year, and I would bet that no game other than God of War Ragnarok could be just the one to do it. But what about you? Which game do you think will be the biggest game of 2022? Are you excited about God of War Ragnarok? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to slice that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content surrounding the latest games in the industry. I make previews, reviews, tips and tricks videos, and more surrounding the latest and greatest games in the industry. And if you find value in my content, I'd greatly appreciate your support. Thank you all good people, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace!